welcome to More Than Commas. I'm your co-host, Paul Adams, and today is episode 317, continuing our review of the critique from White Coat Investor about the Ernst Young white paper, as Corey and I go through points 8 through 14 of the White Coat Investor critique so that you can learn how to look at financial minds when they're writing, telling you what to do with your money. The whole life policy, this is number 8, Corey. This one is going to blow your knees off. The whole life policy is managed. In the appendix, we learn that premiums are level until age 65 when the policy goes paid up, lowering the base amount to what is supported by the cash value. Now, he says something next I didn't expect. This isn't a bad idea for somebody using their policy as a retirement account. Okay? But in my experience, very few permanent life insurance purchases are serviced in this way by their agents. So wait a second, why do I need service?
Well, here's what...
doesn't my portfolio need managing? And my budget need managing?
Here's my reaction, because like just reading this for the first time, this is not actually a problem with the white paper. He's presenting something the white paper did right that he agrees with, but pivoting to a problem with the insurance world and industry, which he's already talked about, which I agree. We agree with him on that point, because this is why we have our firm as we tell all of our clients now, you're going to work with multiple different advisors over the course of your career. It couldn't be just one. We're getting old enough already, I can't believe it, that we won't be around for the rest of some of our clients' careers, but we will have someone in Sound Financial Group there to be able to service this. It's also the reason why it's important to work with a fiduciary financial advisor, not someone who is only licensed in insurance in most cases, because we meet clients all the time that already have whole life policies, but because they've paid us for our time to help them manage everything, we can tell them it's rarely good idea to get rid of an existing whole life policy. Let's leave that in place.
Preach. And that really is the last one. He says, if you go to a new one to help you, how are they going to get paid for that? They're not. They're going to try to sell you a new policy. It's like, that's why Corey said fiduciary advisor. Because if you have a fiduciary advisor, they have the responsibility to either understand that financial product, or if they're your advisor, they should be retaining somebody who understands it well enough to brief them to brief you. But they shouldn't be throwing out opinions or saying, I don't have one. That's their job to have. Okay, this is so good. Number 9, Corey.
Wacky stuff.
We have gone from, let's see, ridiculous. So these are adjectives. Ridiculous. You know what this is? This was run through one of those SEO things. Wacky, and then we're going back to weird. Okay. So some wacky stuff with projected policy performance. One of the most interesting things they do is to use a dividend interest rate model to adjust the projections in the illustration. What good are the illustrations if we can't even use them to project future returns from the policy? Why do they need to be adjusted? Now, I'm no actuary, but I bet these adjustments make insurance products look better. Like, you see how it's like, if he just doesn't have any. There's no evidence. He has none. 0. And he says, so it's probably not true. Like, if that isn't your bias just bleeding through. So sorry for the sound levels on that, Marla, and everybody wearing headphones.
Well,
but he says, why do they need to be adjusted? So I can explain that. And if he had asked anybody who knew anything about whole life insurance, they would have explained it very quickly. Is that because what you are doing is making a projection of a whole life policy over time in a not actual life insurance policy, because current policies can only be illustrated based upon what they're exactly currently doing. But if you wanted to illustrate them over a varying economic environment, like you did the investments, then that would be the adjustments.
It would make sense to do that. Yeah.
Then they also start with the projected column, not the guaranteed column. Okay, so let's just pause there. You suppose when he talks about all his investment returns, he talks about the guaranteed column of buying the
Right.
ETFs and the indexes?
Well, and guaranteed is only the contractually guaranteed interest at the very base level from the insurance company without any dividends. And any of the major mutual insurance companies they're using have always paid a dividend for the last 200 years. So that just really isn't an accurate comparison at all of what you're expecting. And because it was 21 when they wrote this paper, so it's probably 2020 illustrated rates, that
Mm-hmm.
was before interest rates started to rise.
Yeah.
So the projected column is actually probably a low watermark kind of level from a policy of that in that year because
That
it's
was
only
illustrated for
projecting that
2020.
low interest rate out into the future. In this case, maybe 10 years before he wrote this article, the actual might have fallen in between the two, but with the trend of interest rates over time, the projected is really a very low case estimate because interest rates have now come up, which is going to start to raise dividends in insurance policies. So it's accurate for them to adjust it some over time, I would say.
Indeed. Good. Number 10, Corey. Number 10, weird reinvestment of annuity income proceeds. Okay, don't read this. Let me just tell you what it says. It says you should take some of the money coming in from your retirement income and buy additional annuities. Why would people buy additional annuity while already in retirement?
And to lock in gains and keep up with inflation.
That's it. That's it. So
Right.
he's saying it's all weird, but he doesn't even make the question of why would they do it. So you're going to buy even more income annuity with half the income. You'd have to ask an actuary how that affected the study, but I've got a feeling it makes it like how many of these are, wait, what did he say this was? 18 dissecting Ernst and Young. Title was 18 problems with this is 18 feelings I have about this Ernst and Young paper, Corey. I think we could rewrite this as feelings
Yeah.
he has about that, and it would be a great article, actually, and totally accurate. Okay, so that's why we would buy more. That's number
Yep.
10. You buy more because you're locking in equity returns, you're increasing your income. Number 11. He only replaced Corey. He only replaced the fixed income part of the portfolio with life insurance. That's his problem. He said,
Well, that
obviously they're going to compare a lot better when you
okay.
only compare them to the lowest returning part of the portfolio. So he's angry that they didn't put all of the money into whole life insurance and nothing into equities and then make that
Well, what I
comparison.
so what I'm
He,
hearing is like this is his biggest critique of life insurance is that it doesn't perform as well as equities. But the white paper is
keep
actually
going, preach.
agreeing with him and saying we're not no money that should be in equities should go into life insurance. Like, and we would agree with that too. Only the money that was destined for bonds is eligible for life insurance to take over that part of the allocation. So this is, I mean, this is actually he's posing it as a problem, but I agree with him, and it's the virtue of the study, and it
Yeah,
agrees with his outlook on markets and life insurance. Like he should
yeah,
be overjoyed. He should have overjoyed at this part of the study's
that's
methodology.
exactly right. He is again because he's starting with his feelings, how he feels about these products, and then he's trying to find stuff. But that is the exact comparison. What we
Mhm.
also wouldn't compare the return of a treasury bond to an IPO for a tech company. We would compare a
Right.
treasury bond to a municipal bond. That would be the appropriate comparison. Okay. The investor, this is number 12, Corey. And he says, you can't make this up. But obviously, why it's in the fine print. The investor is assumed to repay the policy loan once their portfolio recovers sufficiently from the down market. The study is both counting the income, money borrowed against the policy, and the full face value of the whole life insurance as part of the legacy because you're going to pay the money back somehow, despite the fact you already spent it on living expenses.
Well, I think he's saying the answer to his own question. Like the market goes down, they're taking money from the whole life. Once the market recovers, they're rebalancing back to the allocation that they want to have by repaying the loan and restoring the balance of high risk to low risk in the portfolio.
Having not seen the spreadsheet Ernst and Young did or whatever to do this, he is literally just making it appears. Let us know, doctor, if you do have this, but it appears to be made up out of whole cloth that somehow they didn't account for the whole life policy being paid back, because he says the problem he has is that they're double counting the withdrawals. Now, we've done the math enough, and we're going to show you in a future episode, because when you're not cheating, you don't care who looks at your paper. So in a future episode, we're going to show you the math on this. But he's just assuming that they're doing something wrong. You know why? Because he cannot be with that life insurance could be a component of a successful. That's how bad this bias is. It couldn't even be in the picture. Corey and I've run into products we don't like. And what do? We just make the assessment, see if it's right for the client or not. Okay.
13. I'm really into this one.
Oh, yeah. We have crossed from weird into ridiculous and now bizarre. Number 13, bizarre investment choices. Okay. So I'm going to read exactly what he says here for everybody.
This episode is brought to you by Sound Financial Group. At Sound Financial, we specialize in helping clients build strong, long-term financial strategies for their retirement. If you're looking for personalized advice to help manage your wealth, visit us at sfgway.com to learn more about how we can help you achieve your goals.
The first case study is a 25-year-old couple making $80K a year and saving 20% of it, or $16K a year. For some bizarre reason, they put $1,440 into a 401k and spend $1,600 a year on a whole life policy instead of putting more money in the 401k, potentially getting a match or even using the Roth IRA available to them. I've run the numbers 6 ways to Sunday, and never ever has a whole life policy performance come anywhere near close to what you would get in a tax protected and asset protected retirement account. It's not even close. Now, I'm going to let me just keep reading his for a moment. I almost want to comment. We're going to keep going. Choosing to buy whole life over maxing out available retirement accounts is, Corey, I know you didn't want me to say it, so you better say it. What is it?
He says it's dumb.
Yeah, see, he told me I couldn't say anything was dumb in this episode, so Corey has to read that. This couple is supposedly going to have $61K in today's dollars in retirement income in 40 years. Once you apply inflation for 40 years to those tax brackets, the tax rate on that income will be minuscule. Their standard deduction will probably be $61K in 40 years. Then he says, wait, it gets worse. Supposedly, the best results come from putting 50% of their savings in a whole life insurance. I'd love to see the work behind this one, but of course it isn't included in the study. I guess there wasn't enough room after they put in all the glossy photos. But seriously, 25-year-old couple is supposed to put 50% of their savings in a whole life insurance, and that's supposed to provide the most income legacy 7 years on? Give me a break. And besides, up above, they say they were only putting bond money in a whole life. Are you now telling me, with this 25-year-old couple, have a 50% bond portfolio? This all getting more bizarre as we go. So, Corey, when we look at this, he is correct. And I also don't agree that it's an effective projection, because this young couple is not going to be 50%. I'm going to show you what he's talking about. Is this page, Corey? There we go. So you can see this is scenario 1, investment only, investments in term life insurance, some annuity, some whole life, a little bit of annuity, a little bit of whole life, a little bit more annuity, a little bit more whole life. And the last one that has the most whole life and annuity as a part of the picture on the far right. Well, his gripe is we shouldn't be projecting a 50% bond portfolio. But what I would say is, well, I agree 100%. And it doesn't affect the study. Because if, let's say, we wanted to have an 80% equity portfolio, this would be like 75. We could be at 70. Each one of the scenarios would have an extra 25% in stocks, because that yellow area representing fixed income that I've just highlighted would all now be equities. which means scenario one, scenario two, scenario three, scenario four, scenario five, would all have the exact same 25% in equities producing the same returns. So it would make no difference in the study. So I agree with this critique that a young person would have more money. And it just takes going a level deeper to realize it doesn't make a difference. They could rerun the entire
Well,
study, but each of the scenarios has the exact same amount of assets growing.
that's a great. So I wasn't even thinking in that direction. So I'm glad you covered that. Can you go back to the paper? He is saying like one of his problems is that they're losing out on match. Well, if they're putting 14,000 into a 401k already, they're past maximizing the match. Like almost no employer is matching that far up their contribution,
Yep. Great
right?
point.
Like so they're not really sacrificing match. Let's say that the 16,000 was like they're not fully maxing out the 401k with that 20% of their savings. So let's just say it's all into Roth 401k. Yes, they could have put another 1,600 into Roth 401k, but like they weren't really missing out on traditional Roth IRA contribution they couldn't make. And here's the bigger piece is like he's using the cold hard math of nothing goes wrong for the next 30, 40 years, ignoring that for this couple, I mean, after 5 years, they could get the money back out of their Roth IRA that they put in without any penalty. But they really don't, people don't want to take the money out of their Roth. They definitely can't take it out of the 401k. And that whole life builds some accessible money for them for
Yeah.
the unknowns of life. So there's
Well,
some
they'd be
strategic
limited.
pieces that make it useful outside of that just rate of
So
return thing that he's talking about.
I'm just supervising the comments section. There are ways to take money from a 401k. That Corey just said you can't. You can take some. It's like hardship withdrawals, loans. There are ways you can remove
Well,
it, but the
yeah. Like
methodology,
it's
yeah,
harder to take the money
harder.
out. There's
But
there's a Mac like $50,000 loan. So thank you for
in,
this is like the commission thing before. Like we keep each other
yeah, yeah,
we
yep,
know what each other means and everybody else doesn't always. So we're keeping us on
right.
yeah.
So, and here's the last thing I would say about this is it doesn't make a difference in the assumption, but I would agree. Like this young couple, that scenario where they're putting like 50% of their money into insurance products, at least of their current cash flow, 50% of their savings, like that would be aggressive. And I don't think
Yeah.
we would advise that. Now, if the math made sense, we have an obligation to demonstrate it to clients, but then people need to implement. When a white paper is written, it's written because the Excel spreadsheet is perfectly fine with making changes that optimize outcomes. But sometimes we're
Right.
not fully optimization creatures, so we just implement what will work. But this study holds true. Number 14, Corey. This problem, 70-year time horizon. That's a problem. Is that you have to use these
Yeah.
long time horizons to make whole life look good. Pause, full stop, Dr. Dahl. If you've never run compounding of an investment account versus a whole life policy, it rushes it the longer it goes. If it's just equity investments versus straight life insurance, age 70, what comes out better? But they're
Yeah,
different
that's
assets.
trade investments. Right.
So, but the truth is, so here's what it says, but the truth is 70 to 80% of whole life policies are surrendered during the first 30 to 40 years. Well, doctor, also the assumption is that something like, I don't know what the stat is exactly, but he hasn't been concerned in citing it. So why don't we just call it, well, it's overwhelming that over 50% of people cash out their retirement plans when they change employers. So do we now have to put that in here? How about the fact that people
Right.
get disabled? Like that also happens. So we should probably put that in our assumptions because some percent of people get disabled. We're not doing that. And lots and lots and lots of people make financial mistakes. And what you're doing is you're saying that this, which would obviously be a mistake, just cashing out your policy at age 65. If you're thinking about doing that, call us. It is almost certainly a mistake, and we will help you think through the math. But this, it doesn't matter if other people make financial mistakes. It doesn't. They make
Right.
mistakes. Maybe part of their mistake is the opportunity, you know? That like, so it doesn't like, it's another made up thing based upon his feelings. We want 70-year projections. In fact, in fact, 1/3 are surrendered within the first 5 years. So are you now saying we should do a 20-year projection for these people's, like, how long should we do the projection for the 20-year-old? Like just till they're 75? No. As long as they have a lot of money, then it'll be fine the next 20 years. I don't even understand that one. Okay. Hey, I'm so glad you could join us. That was part 3 of 4. Join us next week, 318, where we finish this analysis, putting you in the position that you can understand what they're saying in these articles, white papers, and being critical of one financial strategy versus another. We'll see you next week.